Hello and welcome to Rainbow Table. For anyone that's been here before, welcome back. And you know there's always been a seat for you here at our Rainbow Table. For folks that are just tuning in, this is Rainbow Table. It was inspired as a response to COVID-19 and the particular issues around isolation for our 2S LGBTQI seniors. Our Facebook group is Rainbow Table. You can check us out and become one of the hundreds and hundreds of members where folks talk about coffee chats and different events that are coming up for seniors. It has been an absolute honor to be your host. My name is Deb Pearce, and I'm so happy to be here and part of the team. I can't even tell you. So today is, did you know that it's National Seniors Day or National Older Adults Day? You didn't? Well, now you do. October 1st. It's always October 1st. And today we're doing a special Rainbow Table because we work with and for seniors like yourself. So I'm going to read my little introduction here before we get to one of three guests today. We have, we're kind of crossing across Canada. We've got someone coming in from Saskatoon. We're going to be speaking with Barbara, who was, you may have heard the story before, she was married to a man, had 3 kids, and then went, wait a minute, I think I like women. We're also going to be speaking with documentarian, filmmaker, and politician Jerry Rogers, coming to us from I'm calling it a lesbian commune on the East Coast. And we also have Richard Jenkins, who we spoke with a little bit earlier this week, coming to us also from the Maritime provinces. So, or Alberta, sorry. So I'm so excited. I'm just thrilled. I have so much to do here, but I want to get going because you've seen enough of me. So I just want to do a quick introduction here because we've been doing this for a while, again, as a response to isolation. But so today we have that specific opportunity to acknowledge the lifelong contributions of these seniors and all of our seniors that have made and continue to make their families, communities, and their societies better with their lived experience. We can't start today without acknowledging, yesterday, of course, was Truth and Reconciliation Day. So I think that's a really important piece to what we're doing. And I know when I was glued to all the media yesterday, taking it all in, we don't know where we are until we know where we've come from, right, with our elders. So just acknowledging Truth and Reconciliation Day yesterday. Let's get on with our first guest. His name is Richard Jenkins, and he's a Cree Métis with Indian status from the mixed community of Moose Mountain, Alberta. He's a gay two-spirit man and has been out to friends and family for 19 years. You're going to hear some of that experience when they moved to Toronto. Listen, has done so much good work for communities, has been a program advisor for Alberta Health Services in the Aboriginal Health Programs Department, and for over 35 years was working with Indigenous communities throughout Canada, working as a promotions advocate for addictions, long-term care, HIV/AIDS work. Without further ado, we had a chance to catch up with Richard a little earlier this week. Please enjoy the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see that you are out and about today.
I am.
You're a busy bee.
Driving here, I live in the country, so if I got a meeting in town, I have to drive.
I love in town. So what's the population of where you live?
2.
It's 1. As soon as you drive to town, the board changes, and then you've got to flip your number back up. That's hilarious. Very remote.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it is for me. It is an honor to speak to you because your lived experience is so vast. As I mentioned in the introduction, there's no shortage of things that you've done, and it's all sort of outward stuff, right? You're helping other folks, and you're educating other folks, and you like to help, I guess. So I want to toot your horn and talk a little bit about your lived experience, being that it's National Seniors Day, National Older Adults Day. Given that with your indigeneity, there's elders. What do you think some of the differences are maybe with Indigenous folks revering elders and maybe other cultures and other backgrounds maybe being a little more dismissive of older folks?
culture is my first answer. Intact culture, knowing space, knowing place in your community, in your family, knowing your teachings, knowing the land, knowing the space where you grew up, knowing your uncles and your aunties, like knowing family. And it's not just knowing them to say, oh, that's my Uncle Jerry or that's my Auntie Martha. But it's knowing where I sit in relation to them in terms of family lineage, genealogy, but family relationship and roles. And, Indigenous folks also had connections to their spirit names. We have, a child name, a youth name, an adult name, then you have a spirit name when you're elderly. And knowing all of that about oneself helps with placement and helps with respect and helps with knowing where I sit in the universe. And that's, I think, comes from having connection to the land. And everyone on the planet is indigenous to some place. Everyone has those kinds of connections to some place on the planet where their ancestors lived for hundreds, thousands of years. And so what's different in Canada and North America is the Indigenous population still have those pieces intact for the most part. Many of us are coming back to that. So I think that's my kind of quick answer.
I love everything that you're saying. I'm hanging on every word you're saying, and I love that. And frankly, I'm envious of that. I think that's a beautiful way to live. I think it's a beautiful way to be. So given that you have some lived experience as a 2S LGBTQI out person, what are some of the things that you've sort of seen in your lifespan, in your lifetime so far, that maybe some of the younger folks could learn from? What are some of the changes you've seen?
Well, my weight, for one.
Okay, but actually, I can totally relate to that. Okay, yes.
What else? Well, I can't move around as much. I can't dance like I used to. So age has impacts on the body for sure, first and foremost. But it also has, for me, I had some health challenges a few years ago, and as we get older, those increase for sure. But I think one of the things is we tend to get more isolated or more disconnected from the community the more older we get.
Right.
As youth, as the younger population kind of takes their space and starts to shine, and that's absolutely amazing and wonderful and natural and normal. There's this tendency to exclude or forget about us older folks. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's a good thing because sometimes we can't keep up to those young folks. But sometimes that forgetting and that putting, aside or behind or, I don't want to really face you because eventually I'm going to be that. And so I think there's a bit of reticence to include and engage because it's a constant reminder that I will get old one day. And so I think that's a big challenge for us.
And there is a level of ageism in the 2S LGBTQI communities, right? There's ableism, there's ageism, there's a lot of body shaming, a lot of body image, a lot of pressure to be within this. I'm not going to give it a specific number, but the specific age and weight and all that stuff, it's relentless, really. And so when you were first going to the aforementioned clubs or, the places where folks congregate so that, the assumption is that they're potentially going to be a queer person that you hit on instead of going to maybe a heteronormative bar. What were some of your earliest experiences? Like I had to knock 3 times on a back alley door in London once to go to a queer bar. Do you remember your first days at those kind of bars?
I was 17 in Edmonton, and quite happened upon the bar district by accident because I had no idea where they were in Edmonton. I had my cowboy boots on, my black jeans, my black leather vest, a white shirt. I was looking fine. Well, I thought I did anyway. Anyway,
that's a hot outfit.
Yeah, well, it was at the time, and I was 17, 6 foot. I was, slim. And anyway, back 50, 40 years ago. And and I didn't know where any of the clubs were. And this guy drives by and he's kind of doing the cruising thing. I didn't know it was cruising at the time, but figured it out pretty quickly. And then kind of connected. And through that connection, found out where the bars were. And so I kind of got mentored in by an older gentleman. And, but my experience wasn't the greatest because I didn't wear the right clothes, I guess. I don't know. But my hair wasn't quite looking the right way. And I was Métis looking. And in Western Alberta, that's a strike against you. So.
Is it?
It was when I was, 17, 18, 19 in Edmonton. Guys my own age would just kind of look at me and just keep walking. And it was all those older gentlemen that would pay attention to me. But that all changed when I moved to Toronto and I gained a few pounds and I, walked everywhere and the environment was already different in Toronto in the early 80s. So my world opened right up and nobody could tell what I was. I could have been Armenian. I could have been Spanish. I could have been all kinds of stuff because I'm mixed blooded. I kind of looked like I could be a bunch of different things back then. I look way different than I do now, obviously with the long hair, but there was way less race challenges in Ontario and Toronto than there was in Edmonton. I would say, oh, he'd be great for you, but too bad he was Native or things like that. That actually happened once in Toronto, to be honest. It did happen once. And I was like, really? You had to say that? Like, really? Okay, well, that guy and I didn't last long.
No, I guess
and that was his friends, this guy that I was dating. And he took me to a Pride weekend party at his place, and his friends were kind of looking at him, looking at me, and I overheard one of them say it would be fine if he wasn't Native. And so, I've had to put up with stuff like that, and so it's been a challenge.
But you see that sort of changing over the years, or does it become more 0 F's given, or do you feel that there's been more education and awareness when people know better, they do better? You don't have to sugarcoat it to me. I want the truth.
I don't know. I don't really see it. But I'm not in the dating pool anymore. I'm out in the country. I try the apps. Out in Western Alberta, you're going to find a lot of bi guys and guys in the closet. So It's like that's not fun. Who wants to be hanging around that?
Yeah, you put your time in. Well, I'm going to close off Richard Jenkins with a very talk show host question, but I can't resist. And I'm going to ask all the guests this. If you could give advice to your younger queer self, what would be the one thing you would tell you?
Dance and sing more. Have more fun. Bottom line for me, because I'm in my 50s now, almost 60, and my weight is different, and I don't dance as much, and I miss it. And that's what keeps me.
I'm going to sing a song with you now, and I don't know about trademarks or copyright infringements, but first I was afraid.
I was petrified. I know I went off key.
Listen, we're going to bring the show on the road. Watch for us in a small town near you. Richard Jenkins, thank you very much. Happy National Older Adults Day, and I thank you for your time today. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you making the time to meet with us here at Rainbow Table.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored and pleased.
Awesome. Coming to us from Alberta today. What a great chat and a great little impromptu performance there. Makes me realize that I should probably dance and sing more myself. So thank you very much. All right, we're going to get on to our second guest here on National Seniors Day, National Older Adults Day here at Rainbow Table. Joanne is writing in saying, thank you. Thanks for joining. Well, the show's not done yet. Feel free to leave your comments in if you want to say something to some of our guests or something about Rainbow Table. Feel free to type it into the comments and we'll pop it up on the screen unless you want it to be private, and then just let us know that. if it's just for myself and Jonathan, the producer here. So thank you again for joining Rainbow Table. We're not done. We have 2 more guests. All right. Our next guest is coming to you and us today from lovely Saskatoon. Barbara Clanchey is her name, and she worked at Out Saskatchewan for over 10 years as a volunteer coordinator and event planner. She's been with her partner for 17 years and married for 9. Without further ado, welcome to Rainbow Table. Here's Barbara.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad that you're sitting in the green room. We did a tech run yesterday, and I know you recently bought your wife an ice maker. That has been unplugged for this interview, and I thank you.
I'm a little embarrassed about the ice maker, but it seems to make her really happy, and she drinks more water. So
whatever it takes, right? Yeah. Whatever it takes. Well, I will wish you, I don't think there's any cards in the card store for this, but happy National Older Adults Day or National Seniors Day. You came to me, for Rainbow Table because of your lived experience, because in speaking with you, you were able to personally share some of your history about, being in England and marrying a man and having a beautiful family. But then, at 22 or so, you thought maybe your life should go in a bit of a different direction. So, because of that experience, we've got younger folks watching, and we've got folks your age watching as well. Very similar stories, I'm sure. Feel free to just chat with us about what that time was like for you.
Oh, it was a little crazy. We were sort of not doing so well anyway for some of the same reasons. And then I had friends who were lesbians, and ended up getting seduced by one of them. And when the light went on, and it was like, oh my God, this makes a lot of sense, And I looked back over my childhood and thought, oh yeah, I had some feelings back then that I just assumed that I would get married and have children. And I married a really nice guy. He comes from a Quaker family and is, doesn't have a macho bone in his body. So, I picked a good guy, but it just wasn't working out. And he wanted to come back to Canada to, live on the farm where his mom still lived. And so it was, okay, do I go? And do the kids go? How does it all work? And so we decided that it would be better to live on the same continent. Oh, now you've got the picture of me up with my...
I don't think it was completely shocking for folks around you for coming out. It's funny because in the pre-tape we talked about how you grew that, I think it was called a rat tail at the time.
I just called it a braid. We lived in the country and we didn't have a lot of money, and this was, just myself and my children. And I couldn't afford to go to a hairdresser. So I cut my own hair, and I cut it off short because it was more comfortable that way.
Right.
But I couldn't reach the back. So I just braided the back that I couldn't reach.
Well,
so it was sort of an accidental mullet.
If you wanted to know where that style started, I'm suspecting it might have been Barbara. Okay, so interesting. So that transition from being in a heteronormative relationship, and then kind of we spoke earlier about getting involved in the feminist movement. For you was sort of part of your history before you started working within Out Saskatoon.
Oh yeah, long time before. I was involved with a group of other women when I was 18, 19, and spent quite a bit of what was called back then a CR group, a consciousness raising group.
Okay.
Which were very common in England, at least. I don't know about here or in the States, but that, they were pretty common. And it was just where you got to sort of talk and figure things out. And we did some fun things. We went to one of the local Whole Food stores, did an event where they had people come and perform, and we all dressed up in these. It's like just a big piece of fabric that you tie around you and then bring back and tie around your waist. And we had these big sticks, and I can't remember the song that we sang to or danced to. Anyway, we caused a huge stir in that particular community, and we're no longer allowed to meet where we had been meeting, so we had to change venues. We made too much noise practicing with our big sticks.
Well, that's how and that's how change happens, right? So you were pioneering within the feminist movement, and we talked about how there was in the groups you were in, there was trans inclusion. We spoke that there wasn't necessarily that vocabulary outwardly for those folks, but certainly there was trans inclusion in that movement. And so David, a very faithful Rainbow Table viewer and listener, is saying, good to be hearing Barbara's story. And I suspect that you're speaking for a lot of folks that sort of subscribe to a heteronormative, template. And then we're like, no, that doesn't really feel like me. So then you did your work with Out Saskatoon. I found you on Queer Seniors Saskatchewan. And so there's a whole lot of life in there, and you got into clowning, and I don't want to fast forward through to your story, but as strong as you sound now in hindsight, I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked Richard, and you heard me say it. If there was any advice that you could have given to that younger Barbara, if anything, what might that have been for you?
Well, I've been thinking about this because you warned me you were going to ask me, which
Yes.
I really appreciated. And I was thinking, oh, well, what if I had come out before I ever met my husband and married him, my ex-husband, I should say. And I thought, well, no, I can't imagine that, because then I have 3 grown children who I'm really close with, all 3 of them, and have 5 grandsons. And, so I wouldn't, that's not something I would tell myself to not do. And I kind of kept thinking about things that, like, I really followed my own path. I homeschooled, I was a clown, I just, and so I think that I would encourage myself to, yes, follow your own path. It'll be tough at times, but that's the way that you get to really be yourself, and it worked for me. It was sort of a package deal to follow that rather odd path.
But it's your path, and I know, and I can hear the folks that are very active on the Rainbow Table Facebook community group, that you are speaking from your lived and personal experience, but it's not dissimilar from a lot of other folks, which is, the clowning might be a bonus to that for some folks. Barbara Clanchey, thank you very much for joining Rainbow Table today from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Thank you so much for your time. Keep being you and keep leading with love. We really appreciate everything that you do. Whether you know you're making these changes or not, you are and you have. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Barbara. So we're going to get to our last guest, last but not least. And she's no stranger to this program, actually. We've had her on before, and we just needed to have her on again for National Seniors Day with all the things that she's done. Getting some great, oh my God, I did clowning, says David. Joanne saying, awesome. Thank you very much for the feedback. Please keep it coming. We love to hear from you. Our last guest is Jerry Rogers. Jerry Rogers is a Canadian politician, a former leader of the Newfoundland Labrador New Democratic Party, and is also a documentary filmmaker, 2 of which films were Farron, Girl on a Road, and My Left Breast. Waiting patiently in the virtual green room, let's bring on Jerry Rogers.
Hi, Deb. So nice to see you. And hello from the traditional and unceded lands and homes of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit people of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Thank you, Jerry Rogers. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, Truth and Reconciliation Day yesterday was it was a very quiet, it was very quiet, somber, reflective day. Did a lot of outreach, signed up for the University of Alberta free online course. So thank you for mentioning that. See, that's what happens when you work with informed folks that are just so smart. National Seniors Day is today. So, or National Older Adults Day for folks that may not want to use that word. Jerry Rogers, I know that, when we talked a bit earlier, we talked about your lived experience, where you are now. I want to save that to the end because it's very exciting. And I think my future might be as your neighbor because it's so.
I hope so.
I know, me too. And so what are some of the things that you feel like being a senior 2S LGBTQI community member, what are some of the things that you've sort of seen in your lifetime?
Oh, well, I was a breech birth. So I always knew there was more than one way of doing things. So I've been an activist all my life. And, I was involved in AIDS Act Up in Montreal. I was so lucky, so very, very lucky to be involved with Studio D at the National Film Board, which was the only state-funded feminist filmmaking studio in the world. I was involved in a mock in the 80s. We had so much activism, and like Barbara, I was part of CR groups where we talked about our own experiences, where we brought mirrors and looked at our vaginas and celebrated our vaginas. I mean, I'm 65, which is a slippery slope to 70, and when I think of all the changes that I have seen. And all the incredible queer folks that I have danced with, loved with, agitated with, I just feel so damn lucky. We took to the streets, we took to the bars, we held kiss-ins, we lobbied and got same-sex marriage. And it was funny. I wasn't that really interested in same-sex marriage because I never ever wanted to get married. But I felt it was really a human rights issue and that we had that right. And as a matter of fact, now I am married after a very brief courtship of 25 years. I married my wonderful partner, Peg Norman. And the work that we did was so intense because for many it was life and death issues that we were dealing with. And we worked hard and as lesbians, we worked with gay men, we worked with trans folks, because many of us came from the feminist movement where we learned how to agitate, we learned how to organize, we learned how to work together, we learned how to use our life and lived experience to move laws, to move relationships. And it's been such a ride. It's just been such a ride. And there seems to have been in the past, 15 years, a bit of dip in activism. But now we see the young queerlings doing fantastic work. And I feel not ignored, not passed over, but I feel lucky enough to be able to work with some of the young queerlings, and
that's beautiful, right? Because I said earlier, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. So you've got that experience. There's the different lens for folks that are a little bit younger, and they're really on this, a cutting edge of things that are always changing. And in our communities, they really are always respectfully sort of changing and evolving. to be incredibly inclusive. If you were to pinpoint a specific moment in time that you feel like, wow, we really made change, because when you're in it, I'm 52 and I've been, I didn't know I was in certain movements until a few years later, because you're just living your life. And yeah, you're making change and you're making your placards and you're doing your signs, but you don't necessarily know that you're going to be part of that fabric of change. Is there a particular moment that you feel personally proud of, or within a group that you were in?
Oh man, I think there's a few. I do think there is a few. I remember the first international AIDS conference that was in Montreal. That was a really long time ago. And I was living in Montreal at the time, and there were, I hosted, that stayed with me, some folks from AIDS Act Up New York. And there were hundreds of us from all over the world, activists who weren't formally part of this conference and then were somewhat shut out. And the Minister of Health in Canada was to open up the conference. And there was so little that had been done, and we saw our people dying around us. And it was at Palais de Congrès in Montreal, and we were all down on the first floor. And then there was a huge escalator going up to the second floor, where the official conference was happening and where the opening ceremonies were happening. And we were chafing at the bit because we couldn't get in. And at one point, I looked to the left and I saw the escalator, and I said, "Let's just go in. Let's just go right through. Don't make eye contact with anyone, just go right through." And we went up together, men and women and trans and BIPOC people, the activists from all over the world around the AIDS crisis, because again, this was a life and death thing. And we went right up through the center aisle, and one of the activists took the podium and officially opened the conference.
Are you
And I thought, the community, I didn't mean to be emotional. The community that we belong to, that has been ridiculed and punished and murdered and disregarded and made fun of, that we work together. Sometimes we really beat each other up. But when we work together, it is a thing of absolute beauty. And to be able to, and we have to learn from each other. I keep learning from people, the diverse communities that we are. I keep learning from the young queerlings as well. Sometimes I'm really confused by some of the things, and I say, hey, talk me through this, or
break it down for me. Right.
Or I can say, you know what, we were there. If I can give you a little bit of advice on that one if you want it.
Yeah.
But geez, how lucky are we when we find community? How very, very lucky are we? And I think what's so important, in spite of our diversity, in spite of our microaggressions against each other, exclusions, that for us to continue to do the hard work, to listen to each other with the real intention of really hearing, and to move together, to build community, to take our space, is like, wow, because it transforms beyond our communities as well. It's about transforming the world.
More beautiful closing words. I could not have, and I won't even try, to have more beautiful, eloquent, inclusive words to close out Rainbow Table today. Like, how beautiful. You're getting some great feedback from some viewers. David is saying, wow. Joanne is saying, so inspiring, as you are. Jerry Rogers, look them up. There is no moss growing underneath your feet. Oh, speaking of moss growing underneath your feet, before I ask you the talk show question of if you could tell your younger self Tell me very briefly the environment that you've chosen to live in right now. Go.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I am about an hour and 15 minutes out of St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm in Conception Bay North, near Carbonear. There's this place is maggoty with dykes and a few gay fellas as well. And some of us are living here full time. Some of us are living here part time. And the community is growing and growing. There's at least 15 or more households. We take care of each other. We share with each other. We help insulate each other's walls. We share cake pans or wheelbarrows, and it's fabulous. And
That's great.
there's so much room here. There's so much room here for so many more people. And some of the youngins are coming too, which is great. And it started almost 30 years ago, and it's just taken off. And 2 dykes have just been elected to our town council this past Tuesday. There's 5 councillors, 2 of them are dykes, and a bunch of us are going to be on committees. So we're helping to build an inclusive, compassionate, lovely community, and there's room for lots of people.
That's beautiful. That is really the paradise that we all kind of want, because in past Rainbow Table episodes, we have talked about long-term care homes. We have talked about how COVID has particularly done a disservice to senior folks, but also shone a light on the deficiencies, as well as talking about aging in place, right?
Yeah.
We talked to Jackie from Canada Home Share, and we talked about how seniors or older adults can pair up with younger post-secondary education folks, teaching each other, but also aging in place. So this is beautiful, and expect me to be knocking on your door soon.
Great.
Very quickly,
and I want Richard to come and dance, and Barbara too.
Yes.
We dance a lot here.
Okay, I really like that. You be careful what you ask for, sister, because I'm coming down. All right. I don't know what the answer might be, because I actually suspect that I have an idea what you're going to say. But if you could give young Jerry any words of advice, what would they be?
Follow your heart and dance, the same as Richard. I love Emma Goldman. If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. We can dance it through.
I love it. I feel like if I was actually more professionally dressed from the waist down, I'd get up and dance with you now, but I'm not, so I can't. Jerry Rogers, thank you very much. Look for them. There's no shortage of Googling for Jerry Rogers on Wikipedia. I thank you very much always for your support with Rainbow Table. There's always a seat for you here, and we thank you so much, Jerry, for being here again today. Oh, we got her off. Thank you so much. We have had an absolute riot. If you want to see previous episodes of Rainbow Table, I feel like there's maybe 17 or 18 or 16 of them. You can go to agal.ca/Rainbow Table. Thank you very much to Chantel for saying great episode. I appreciate those words. Even though you're on my team and you work with Agal, I love that Agal supports other projects that Agal's doing, which is great, right? Because we work so much stronger as a team. So thank you very much. Joanne says another wow. Great program, Deb. Thanks. So that's for me. Thank you very much, David Richard Lowe. Thank you for your support. Again, if you're just joining or just watching this now, Rainbow Table on Facebook is on there. Happy National Older Adults Day. Happy National Seniors Day. What a great note to leave Rainbow Table on, because frankly, this has been for you, right? If you're in that age demographic, and God willing, we all will be someday, this has been for you. And I could not be more pleased to be your host. I'm not going to get emotional, so I'm just going to tighten it off. I'm going to tie it off. I'm going to tie it up with a bow and say it has been an absolute honor. My name is Deb Pearce, and I have been honored to be your host here. And there's always a seat for you at our Rainbow Table. Take care.